1,000 hours. That's how long it takes an average person to complete The Binding of Isaac. That's 40 days of non-stop playing. In that amount of time, you could learn another language, earn $14,000, or watch 500 movies. So I'm sure you're wondering, but why? Why waste so much time on this? Why does it take so long to beat? Well, after spending 200 hours myself in the game, I can not only answer those questions, but also explain why beating it is worth every single second. Because Isaac isn't your normal game, but actually, it's built to constantly break your expectations. And it started doing that over a decade ago, back in 2011, when it initially released. The creator, Edmund McMillen, was just riding off the high of his two other successful games, Gish and Super Meat Boy. But with success comes fear. He was worried that his next game would be incomparable to the previous two. So instead of pulling his hair out, he decided to have fun with it. Taking inspiration from his childhood memories, like The Legend of Zelda.
When I turned 9, I finally got a Nintendo for my birthday, and that's like, I was all about Zelda. That was like a game I was completely obsessed with.
The environments he grew up in.
When I was little, I wanted to be a marine biologist, and I kind of had this obsession with the idea that there's this infinite number of creatures and they're being discovered every day, and that's kind of where the whole different creatures things came from.
And overall, his weird upbringing.
Like, a lot of the characters I make usually are like very fleshy, lots of skin folds, and that all comes from like my obsession with my grandpa when I was little, who was a really big guy.
In just a single week, he created what we now know as the original Binding of Isaac. The gameplay was simple. Shoot enemies, obtain items, and kill bosses as you explore the depths of Isaac's basement. McMillen was so unsure about how Isaac would be received that he released it for a measly $5 on Steam. But damn, people were hooked. The dungeon crawling nature, the unapologetically grotesque enemies, and endless item combinations created a shockingly loyal fanbase. Not to mention that it was created on Flash, meaning people would re-upload it to websites completely for free, spreading the popularity like wildfire. They followed up with the DLC, but quickly realized they were limited with the software they used to create it. So just 2 years later, they completely remastered the game, creating the masterpiece, which was The Binding of Isaac Rebirth. This is where the magic starts. Rebirth was a complete overhaul for Isaac. Over 500 items, 10 new playable characters, 100 more enemies, and over 50 bosses. It was a lot. But the developers knew that. So they did something pretty genius. Instead of overwhelming players with the sheer abundance of content, they restricted access through achievements. People already feel dopamine and excitement from getting an achievement, but in Isaac, achievements would reward you with actual in-game content, like items, characters, and new areas to explore. This was one of the first times achievements and unlockables were combined in such a phenomenal way. If it's your first time playing, you might reach the first 6 to 10 achievements within your first few runs. But then, out of nowhere, all of that comes to a startling stop. Because Isaac is not an easy game. Beating just the first boss alone can take you upwards of 10 to 20 hours. And when you finally do it, it unlocks a new floor that's even harder. There, enemies now hit twice as hard, items are much rarer, and suddenly, this quote-unquote simple roguelike becomes an impossible challenge. But it's actually designed to test you, because every final boss you defeat unlocks something completely new. This is the core of Isaac's progression. At first, the final boss is Mom, but beating her triggers a chain reaction of increasingly difficult floors, eventually leading to a grand total of 8 final bosses. One average run against Mom can take roughly 30 minutes, and each additional floor adds even more time. The absolute bare minimum to unlock those 8 bosses is 10.5 hours of grinding. But that's only if you're playing flawlessly, which, let's be fair, we're not all gonna play without making mistakes. Unless you're Lazy Matman, who has 4,600 hours. So 10.5 hours is super generous. And that's only scratching the surface. The game actually tracks your progress through something called completion marks. Each mark comes from beating a final boss, giving you an achievement and unlocking completely unique items for everyone you get. But the thing is, each character has their own set of completion marks. That means you have to unlock every single completion mark between 11 different characters. But some are way harder than others, basically changing the entire way you have to play the game. Let's compare these two, The Lost and Azazel. The Lost is notoriously the hardest character in the game, for good reason at that. He doesn't have any health. Instead, he can only get hit once during a room. That seems fun in hindsight, but if you're fighting a boss like Delirium, it's almost impossible not to get hit twice. You have to play much safer, which ends up eating a lot of time. But Azazel, on the other hand, is the complete opposite. He's a speedy glass cannon. You have to get up close and personal to do any damage, but the payoff is insane. He starts with a laser that shreds enemies. Hands down, the strongest start from any character. But the thing is, both of these characters basically force you to relearn how to play Isaac, pouring countless hours into just improving with them alone. So when you multiply those generous 10.5 hours between 10 different characters, you're looking at well over 100 hours just to get all the completion marks alone. And that's not even all. Rebirth also introduced challenges, but as the name implies, challenges are hard. Let's take this one for example, Solar System. This challenge fully disables the most important mechanic in the game, shooting. Instead, you have 2 flies orbiting around your head that do damage, so it's up to you to execute almost near perfect movement to maximize your damage. This challenge alone took me 6 hours to beat. So quickly, adding everything up, it becomes clear that Rebirth would take 200 to 300 hours to complete. And I hear you saying, Magic, didn't you say it would take 1,000 hours to complete? Did you clickbait me? You dumb, stupid No, I would never do that. It's okay, because I haven't factored in the 4 other DLC that have been added since then. Each one adding a grand total of, let's see here, 500 items, 14 floors, 50 bosses, 30 more characters, and 15 challenges. They nearly tripled the amount of content. If it's still hard to visualize, let me just show you. This is everything the original Binding of Isaac had. But this is everything they've added since the remake. Wait, but what's that in the crowd? It says subscribe? Huh, maybe that's a good idea to let me know if you're enjoying so far. But up until now, I've been framing Isaac as this impossibly dense game that should never be completed. But honestly, that can't be further from the truth. Because Isaac isn't just a hard game, but a beautifully intricate system where everything complements each other, making every single second worth it. When you start, you're thrown into a mess. Everything is trying to kill you, and there's no tutorials to hold your hand. Frankly, it's overwhelming. But quickly, components start to piece together into a completed picture. That feeling is the hook that grabs people into Isaac, slowly honing your skills to control the chaos. It all starts the second you open the game, as you choose your character. Each character has their own unique gimmick, already giving you an option of how you're going to approach each run. And if you ever get bored of a character, there's still 33 others to try, which seems like a lot, but honestly, they're unique, and checking off these marks on some characters can be the most satisfying and joyous experience you could ever feel. People dedicate entire marathons just to unlocking them, but at the end of the day, no matter who you play, how you play, once you get good, you'll start unlocking new items every single run. And when those unlocked items start interacting, even if they seem completely useless on their own, they can fuse into insanity. This helps the pacing of the game, because even doomed runs can quickly be recovered from just one simple item. Even experienced players with thousands of hours completely pop off when they come across the top tier. But here's a catch. You can't choose what items you get. Everything in Isaac is completely random. Sometimes you start a run and almost right off the bat, you're completely overpowered. But most times, you're barely scraping by with garbage items in tiers that do nothing. The stress is amplified even further because of just how many choices you can make on just a single floor. Do you risk a bomb to check for a secret room? Do you reroll the item? Do you skip the devil deal? Every little decision can completely change the outcome of a run. But the best part is that regardless of your skill level, you'll be completely fine no matter what you choose. Bettors can min-max, pushing the game to its absolute limit. Newcomers might miss some things, but the outcome is the same for both groups. They're both completing the run, having fun, but most importantly, always finding new ways to experiment. This allows Isaac to balance turn your brain off fun with deep advanced strategy in such a perfect way. But here's the thing, I guarantee that not a single soul would be able to tell how intricate this game is from just a single glance. I mean, look at it. Your little kid using tears as guns and shooting poop. What sane person would ever guess that Isaac has this much to offer? I mean, I sure didn't, but that's not the only thing that left me shocked. Isaac's story is actually a tragedy about trauma, neglect, and abuse. To summarize, Isaac is a troubled kid who grows up in a broken household. His parents constantly argue. With no support system, Isaac escapes into the depths of his mind, imagining a massive world under his home, filled with poop, monsters, and devils. But one day, his hysteria takes over, so he locks himself in his toy chest, slowly suffocates, and dies. Isaac isn't just about exploring a dungeon under some kid's house. It's actually looking through the lens of a little kid, slowly losing his sanity more and more as death draws near. Now tell me, would you ever expect that from a game with a boss named Mega Fatty? The Binding of Isaac breaks every expectation. It broke McMillen's expectation of succeeding. It breaks the expectations of gamers who bought it thinking it was just a silly game. And it breaks the world's expectation by proving that even games covered in shit can be absolutely golden. Take care of yourself. I really hope to see you again. Have a good one.